The wind on Everest doesn't sound like the wind anywhere else on Earth. At sea level, wind howls and whistles. Up here above 8,000 meters it screams. Thin air tears across jagged ridges, whipping ice crystals like shards of glass, stinging exposed skin. Every step feels like dragging a body made of lead. Your lungs rasp, your thoughts blur, and somewhere above you lies the summit, the highest point on Earth. But Everest isn't just a mountain, it's a mirror. It shows climbers not just how high they can go, but how much they're willing to sacrifice. In 2006, 3 men climbed toward that mirror, each with different dreams, different strengths, different flaws, and all 3 never came back. Their names were David Sharp, Green Boots, and Scott Fischer. Their stories are not just about avalanches, storms, or cold. They're about choices, about the razor-thin line between survival and surrender, and about what happens when ambition collides with nature's final judgment. Before we unravel their fates, you need to understand the world they entered, the death zone. At around 8,000 meters, the human body stops healing. Cells die faster than they regenerate. Muscles waste. The brain misfires. Fluid seeps into lungs, drowning climbers one breath at a time. Even with oxygen tanks, every movement is agony. Imagine holding your breath, running up 10 flights of stairs and never being allowed to exhale. That's what each step feels like up there. And in that place, help is almost impossible. Rescues are rare because saving someone else might mean sacrificing yourself. On Everest, morality bends beneath survival, and sometimes it breaks. David Sharp, the silent climber David Sharp, wasn't reckless, but he was stubbornly alone. Born in England, quiet and brilliant, he had climbed big mountains before. But Everest was different. In 2006, he decided to climb it without Sherpas, without bottled oxygen, without a safety net. For him, it wasn't about luxury expeditions or big teams. It was about purity, the raw, stripped-down version of mountaineering. He joined the cheapest expedition on the north side of Everest, a climb that offered little support and almost no backup. No weather forecasting team, no satellite communications, just climbers sharing permits, chasing their dream. On May 13, 2006, David left high camp in the darkness, aiming for the summit. Some say he might have made it. Climbers reported seeing a lone figure sitting just below the top during the night. But by morning, David was no longer climbing. At 8,500 meters, inside a shallow limestone alcove known as Green Boots Cave, he was found curled up, motionless, his limbs stiff, his oxygen mask empty, yet he was alive. Barely. That morning, climbers began passing him one by one. Some thought he was already dead. Some stopped, bent down, and listened. They heard faint groans. He whispered his name. He asked to sleep, but on Everest, sleep means death. A Sherpa checked on him. Others radioed down, but no one stayed. Over 40 climbers stepped past David Sharp that day. 40. Some didn't want to believe he was alive. Others knew it, but they also knew the brutal truth. Trying to drag a frozen, half-conscious man down from the death zone would likely mean their own deaths too. And so David was left. Hour after hour until the mountain claimed him. By the next morning, he was gone. His body remained beside another, one that had been there for a decade already. That body was known not by a name but by a legend. A landmark etched into the route itself. A man remembered only by what he wore. The man they called Green Boots. The witness who never left. If you climb Everest from the north side, there's one landmark that every climber knows. Just below the summit ridge, beneath a limestone overhang, lies a body. A figure frozen on its left side, knees tucked in, arms folded tight as if in restless sleep. His face hidden by ice, but his boots, bright neon green, unmistakable. For more than 20 years, Green Boots lay there. A grim marker, a waypoint, a silent reminder of how unforgiving Everest is. Climbers pass by him like commuters pass by a milestone, whispering a prayer, or sometimes nothing at all. His real name was likely Sawang Paljor, a young Indian climber from Ladakh. In May 1996, he and 2 teammates from the Indo-Tibetan Border Police made a push for the summit. They radioed that they had reached it. Later analysis suggests they may have stopped at a false summit, just 150 meters short. And then the storm came, a blizzard with winds over 100 kilometers per hour, temperatures below -40 Celsius. None of them returned. Later that season, climbers stumbled upon Paljor's body beneath the rock overhang. His oxygen bottles lay nearby, his green boots stuck out of the snow, and slowly the mountain gave him a new name. Green Boots became part of Everest itself, an accidental guardian of the path, a marker of both progress and doom. And when David Sharp collapsed in that very cave in 2006, many who passed him thought he was just green boots, frozen years ago. They didn't realize he was still alive, until it was too late. But not everyone who dies on Everest remains anonymous. Some were legends known across the world, and one of them was Scott Fischer. Scott wasn't supposed to die. He was too strong, too experienced, too respected. But in 1996, Everest showed him the same cold indifference it shows everyone else, and his story would become one of the most infamous tragedies in mountaineering history. Scott Fischer was larger than life. At 40, he had the kind of reputation climbers dream about. He wasn't just strong, he was legendary. In 1994, he had summited Everest without supplemental oxygen, something fewer than 200 people had ever done. He was charismatic, loved by clients, and known for his philosophy. Getting to the top is optional. Getting down is mandatory. But in 1996, that philosophy was tested. And on Everest, words don't always match reality. Scott was leading an expedition for his guiding company, Mountain Madness. Unlike David Sharp, he wasn't climbing alone. His team was large, well-equipped, and supported by Sherpas. But commercial expeditions on Everest come with a different kind of pressure. Responsibility. Clients pay tens of thousands of dollars. They expect guides to lead them to the top. Failure isn't just personal. It's financial, professional, and public. On May 10, 1996, Fischer left Camp 4 at the South Col with his clients and guides. The sky was clear. Spirits were high. But Everest is a master of illusion. The climb was slow from the start. Delays at bottlenecks like the Hillary Step meant hours lost. Ropes hadn't been fixed properly. The schedule was collapsing, and Scott himself wasn't moving like his old self. Some later suggested he was suffering from HAPE, high-altitude pulmonary edema, a condition where fluid floods the lungs. His speech was slurred, his steps unsteady. Even with bottled oxygen, he struggled to keep pace. But turning back? That wasn't in his nature. Fischer had built his reputation on being tough, on pushing through. And when his clients pressed upward, so did he. By 3:45 p.m., 2 hours past the safe turnaround time, Scott Fischer stood on the summit of Everest. He had done it, again, but this time triumph felt fragile. He stayed only 20 minutes before turning to descend, and that's when the mountain began to strip him piece by piece. He stumbled on the way down, his strength drained. His oxygen was running low. His Sherpa, Lobsang Jangbu, tried to short rope him, physically dragging him down sections of the mountain. But Scott collapsed near the south summit. Barely conscious, he told Lobsang to go down for help. That was the last order he would ever give. Night fell with hurricane-force winds tearing across the ridge. Other climbers were stranded too. Among them, clients from rival guiding company Adventure Consultants, led by Rob Hall. Chaos unfolded in the storm. One man, Anatoly Bukriv, Fischer's own guide, became a hero that night. Against all odds, he launched a solo rescue mission, venturing back into the storm, pulling half-dead clients down the mountain. He saved lives, but he couldn't save Scott. When Bukriv finally reached Fischer, Scott was barely alive. His oxygen mask was empty. His downsuit was unzipped, one arm sticking out into the cold, a classic sign of hypothermia known as paradoxical undressing. His face was pale, his speech incoherent. The strongest guide on the mountain was being undone by the elements. Bukriv stayed with him as long as he could, covering his face with snow, moving him off the main route so others wouldn't trip over his body. But when the storm worsened, he had no choice but to leave. Scott Fischer died on Everest that night. Not because he was weak, not because he was unskilled, but because even legends cannot outlast the death zone. Everest strips everyone down to human limits, and sometimes it strips away more than that. His body remains there still, frozen into the slope, a reminder that even the strongest can fall. The mountain that never forgets. 3 men, 3 different paths, but one mountain. David Sharp, who tried to climb alone in silence. Green Boots, who became a landmark against his will. Scott Fischer, the professional who led others but couldn't save himself. Their stories collide in the same frozen corridors of Everest, and together, they raise questions that have no easy answers. Why do climbers walk past dying men? Why do people pay to risk their lives for a summit that doesn't care who they are? And what does it mean when the world's highest mountain becomes the world's coldest graveyard? Everest has claimed over 300 lives. Many of those bodies are still there, preserved by the cold. They become part of the landscape, grim markers, frozen milestones. Some climbers are nameless, known only by their gear. Others, like Scott Fischer, are legends with books and films about them. But the mountain doesn't distinguish. It holds them all the same way, and that is the cruel symmetry of Everest. It doesn't matter if you climb cheap and alone, like David Sharp. It doesn't matter if you climb as part of a national team, like Tsewang Paljor. It doesn't even matter if you're a world-famous guide like Scott Fischer. Up there above 8,000 meters, everyone breathes the same thin air. Everyone walks the same narrow ridge between life and death.